I can fix her, is what I'd like to say, except she keeps leaving me on day 21. Needy Streamer Overload is a game I feel needs a little introduction. I mean, when Good Smile makes not one, but 3 figures surrounding your indie game, you know you've hit the big leagues. In today's video essay, this is the game I'd like to discuss. In this psychoanalysis, we will very briefly cover the skeleton of the story for newcomers, and then dive headfirst into collective consciousness, partial and full consciousness transplantation theory, borderline personality disorder, and the needy streamer's desires and where they come from. This will all be coming from me, a mentally ill YouTuber, so I feel the analysis is coming from the right place. So, are you ready? Because if so, I think it's time we dive headfirst into Needy Streamer Overload. Assume the role of Ame-chan as you guide Ame-chan in her new career path, streaming. Make decisions for her, literally all of her decisions actually, as you and her have to navigate the bizarre world of the internet. Managing what she streams and how her internet persona will affect her stress levels, affection towards you, and her own mental darkness. How deep will you dive into the wired, and how much of your sanity will you retain on your journey? This is the basic story as it stands. What, did you want more? Do I look like a recap channel to you? Why? That is the question of today's video. Why stream? Why make YouTube videos? Well, friends, if you yourself have a YouTube or Twitch channel, I won't have to tell you the dopamine hit each and every comment gives you, the rush that a new subscriber provides to your brain. But why? Let's talk about, once again, the collective consciousness. I've talked about it ad nauseum at this point, so here's the brief summary. We live within a collective of people, and our minds are externally influenced by those others at a formative age. It's like a hive mind, an ocean, with each new idea and person being a byproduct of waves splashing against other waves. It seems like a pretty simple concept. So what does this have to do with literally anything? Well, the pursuit of greatness, at least in my estimations, is a primal desire to influence the collective that has influenced us. This, mixed with the innate desire to dominate the competition in whatever field you're in. I mean, that's how we've survived as a species for so long, isn't it? Advanced communication and, well, posable thumbs are all we really have as an advantage over other animals. And I guess bigger brains, but besides the point. And the latter we share with primates and apes. So when we really boil it down, our network of communication is really what has gotten us this far. Thus, we have this desire to communicate with others, translating what's inside of our minds with our art, our words, our streams. We share our ideas into the void. Or do we? Our worldly society, at least in most parts of the world, is accelerating at an unprecedented rate. And this is, of course, due to the advent and easy access of the internet. This is what Serial Experiments Lain is essentially about. How the internet, or the wired, connects a population that was already innately connected, except in a much more direct way. Before, I would have had to write a book and have it somehow become famous to get the same exposure as a simple tweet of mine could theoretically get, even if no one actually ends up liking the tweet. #relatable. This is why I make videos, why Ame-chan streams, to connect with you all, to impact the collective consciousness just as it has impacted us, in the most direct way possible. Of course, this comes with a number of drawbacks. Kids should not have cell phones. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I digress. The first thing you do when you wake up is, I believe, the most important thing you would do that entire day. That groggy feeling, what do you reach for first? The curtains to get some fresh rays of sunshine? Or the artificial light of your phone? I know my answer to that question, and I think I could pretty accurately predict yours as well. Ame-chan's is even more obvious. You know she is going straight for that phone. As am I. as are you. Well, probably. Maybe you're watching this video as the first thing you're doing today, and if you are, I wish you luck with the rest of your day. When the first thing you do in the morning is go on something like Twitter, you are very unintentionally, or maybe intentionally, having your mind subconsciously relate itself more with your phone than with your own body. Over time, your consciousness associates itself more with the typing or scrolling of your fingers than with the physical husk you call a shell. This, friends, is partial consciousness transplantation in normal people. Of course, one can imagine how detrimental an effect this can have on kids. Growing up with a phone causes a level of scale of dissociation that I don't think we've ever fully seen before. We'll have yet to see how many kids are damaged by this, probably seen in the numbers of those that eventually develop psychosis, a number I expect to go up. If you want a better explanation as to why that is, go watch my video entitled Explaining Away Psychosis. But for a brief summation, self-disorder is probably the cause of psychosis, which itself is a dissociation on the fundamental level, the embodied self. I hypothesize that we will see the number of cases of psychosis skyrocket in the coming years as those children who grew up with smartphones are, well, growing up, and are affected heavily by dissociation caused by their phones, as I previously just discussed. Ame-chan, like myself, is a clear victim of partial consciousness transplantation. She puts her entire all into her online self. All her self-worth is buried in a computer screen. I don't have to tell you how dangerous that is. She is a typical example of another theory of mine. God, when did I accidentally come up with so many psychological theories? Anime profile picture syndrome. Another video to be found on the channel. The internet essentially targets the neurodivergent and mentally ill, as we don't feel as comfortable with face-to-face interaction. This causes us to associate ourselves more with our online self, or wired self if you would, than with our presenting selves. Well, it would be more accurate to say that our online self becomes our presenting self, as opposed to our bodily self. This is the essence of anime profile picture syndrome. But certainly not all I have to say on it, so go watch the video now. Well, after you're done with this one, of course. Now, not to sound too much like our beloved Angel here, but big tech certainly knows at least the concept at the heart of partial consciousness transplantation. Mental darkness just took a hit of 5. And as they always do, they're weaponizing it to sell you more useless stuff. But it gets worse, friends. There's a reason why Meta bought Oculus and wanted and subsequently failed to establish the metaverse. This is the natural and cruel step forward for these companies. Full consciousness transplantation. Something I talked about in my The Amazing Digital Circus video found on the channel. Or maybe in the description, I don't know yet. And since I'm bored of conventional analysis, here is a snippet of a scene from the feature-length film I'm working on, America Dreamin'. Enjoy. Precisely. That's why the Zuck is pushing this metaverse thing so hard. To get your consciousness further transplanted. And they want to sell you a unique kind of useless shit. Digital wear. And in a purely digital world, that stuff basically becomes your entire identity. Dressing up your avatar and shit. Sort of like making your Rocket League car look super dope, but a lot more sinister. And I'm guessing there's no ad block in the verse? You would be correct, my friend. Sounds like some dystopia type shit. It is. Kind of cyberpunk in a way. Okay, maybe we can't start that podcast. And scene. Yeah, I think you get the point. This stuff is dangerous. Ame-chan is not stated to have any specific mental disorders, but for the sake of this video, we'll be assuming she has borderline personality disorder. Okay? Okay. But why do I think this? Well, let's go over some of the symptoms, shall we? Impulsivity is a huge part of BPD. And while if you've played or seen someone play Needy Streamer Overload, it's pretty obvious how this plays a factor. Not only is she entirely addicted to the internet, but Ame-chan engages in a lot of impulsive and dangerous behavior, such as taking excessive amounts of drugs or self-harming. Those with BPD have a desperate need for validation, and in this day and age, The internet is simply the fastest and most importantly, direct way to achieve said validation. That is ultimately why she becomes a streamer in the first place. Unstable relationships are also a core symptom of BPD, which is exemplified rather brilliantly in needy streamer overload with 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚𝐤𝐬. The love meter is one of the hardest to control, and if you don't respond to her 5 times, you get an ending. One that I accidentally got a lot. She literally just walks out saying she can't handle it more, much to my sadness. This fear of abandonment is core to the borderline personality disorder experience, to the point where much of the fear and paranoia is often imagined, not real. On the flip side, if the love meter gets too high, Ame-chan becomes both possessive and obsessive, mirroring BPD's unstable relationship factor in that believing someone is perfect one moment and then suddenly believing they don't care about you the next. These fears or near worship are often centered around one's favorite person. This can get to the point where said BPD individual follow all of their instructions, letting them completely dictate their life. Of course, this sounds a lot like 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚𝐤𝐬's role in Ame-chan's life. Now, it's unclear whether or not 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚 is actually real, or is a figment of Ame-chan's imagination. Some endings, including the secret ending, allude to 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚 being just that, and there's certainly a psychological basis for that. I recommend reading the article linked in the description, Can a BPD Fear a Person Be Fictional? Explanations, from the website Your Brain Friend. But to summarize, someone with BPD can often idealize a fictional character so much that they fall in love with them, without ever realizing that said person is just that, a fictional character. This aligns quite nicely with borderline personality disorder's more psychotic side of things, as those who suffer from the disease can often also suffer from psychosis. I myself have a friend who shares this experience. I mean, I'm fairly certain Ame-chan hallucinates at least once in the game, although I forget where this happens. This could also be a drug-induced psychotic episode. What is more clear, however, are her delusions, and the very metastructure of the game itself. For a very extensive explanation as to this, watch my Explaining What Psychosis video linked in the description, but for a brief summation of my thoughts as it relates specifically to needy streamer overload, her clearly delusional nature might make her believe that someone she loves is controlling her every action. I myself feel that way as a fellow sufferer of psychosis, although mine is evil demons as opposed to a trusted loved one. Of course, this again brings up the question, who is 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚? Well, the answer to that is actually quite simple. It's you, silly, which may seem obvious as they are the self-insert character, but I think it's much more meta than that. You are the person who literally controls everything that she does, and are the object of her affection. To best describe how she probably feels, here is a brief excerpt taken from my Milk 2 analysis, a game which is quite similar to Needy Streamer Overload in a lot of ways, particularly in the role of the player. As a child, I frequently imagined myself to be a video game character. When I say this, I mean it very literally. My perspective was often from a top-down third-person POV, identical to the bird's-eye view you would find in any common RPG. This was not by choice, mind you. It would be accurate to say that I had no control over this. My body was little more than an avatar, and I would even wait to make movements until I could feel the analog controller make a certain input. Once I did, I would move with a calculated purpose, going only where I felt the player desired me to go. To this day, I'm unsure if my consciousness was the avatar or it was the player. Perhaps it was part of both. This phenomenon extended to the events in my life as well. Events that I would come to cast as a story. I wouldn't call it a predetermined fate, but rather that places were calling to me, aware that I specifically would someday go there. I was impressed and still am that they were able to pre-render those parts of the level, although I can't be sure if they actually did. Particularly eventful days were cataloged in my brain as VHS direct-to-television sequels to A Charlotte's Web. I created countless of them and would even imagine things like the commercial advertising the movie, with scenes of my life playing in a small square on the left side, while the right side had a VHS-esque yellow background with the tape slowly rotating proudly. It was always standing on its corner. When I look back at my childhood, this is what I see. I want to stress this as much as I can. I mean it quite literally. Most of my memories are perceived as happening outside of my body, as if my consciousness itself was a free-roaming camera on golf with your friends. To this day, I wonder if I was real, if I am real, even now. Quote over. Through this perspective, I think the answer to whom 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚 is rather obvious. They're the manifestation of Ame-chan's desire to have a favorite person, compounded by the fact that she is an internet-addicted individual. Due to her psychosis and all this, she then envisions herself to be a video game character, controlled by an otherworldly being that she has hopelessly fallen in love with. This metastructure works beautifully as, of course, she is indeed a video game character, controlled by you, an otherworldly being that she is certainly hopelessly in love with. She's sort of like Monica in that way. This, friends, is what happens when mentally ill children, or even healthy children, are given complete internet access and video game access. I think there's something to say about how 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚 interacts with Ame-chan. It's almost entirely through an internet browser and text messages, and it always stuck with me. Made me think he wasn't real. Now, I don't know exactly what to say about that, so please leave a comment on what you actually think about that. I also want to make one thing very clear. Those with BPD can have healthy relationships and be a great person, as long as they're properly managing their mental illness, as it is with every other mental illness out there. They can live happy lives. They can be a great and supportive partner. I just felt that was important to say. Ten out of 10. 1 out of 10. These will both ruin your day or make your day, respectively. It's actually crazy how much internet approval, even when you know it's probably just your title and thumbnail that needs work, matters to your overall well-being. If you're an internet creator like I am, you will know what I mean. In this way, views are addictive. This problem, then, is greatly exacerbated by those with mental illness, particularly borderline personality disorder, as it comes with an impulsive nature, which is very heavily tied to addiction. For further reading on that, I suggest the article Dissecting Impulsivity and Its Relationships to Drug Addictions by, there's a lot of names I can't pronounce, J. David 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚𝐤𝐬, James R. Oceanhurst, 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚 Alexander S. James, Stephanie M. Groman, and Zachary T. Pennington. Or just look up the keywords impulsivity and addiction, you'll find a whole slew of articles with evidence supporting this notion. Even aside from Ame-chan's own condition, which determines that she is definitely addicted to streaming, virtually every mental illness that features any semblance of depressive features, which is a lot of them, if not most, will probably lead into addiction. Now, this is my own personal theory, a game theory, if you would, but we'll use depression as the main example here. If you experience anhedonia, where you cease to experience pleasure from almost everything, especially healthy things that used to give you those little hits of dopamine, you are prone to addictive behavior because, not to sound cliche here, you are chasing after something, anything that will make you feel. Since you don't normally feel much of anything, it is so easy to go to things that are hyper-focused on dopamine hits, like gambling or smoking, or in Ame-chan's case, streaming, or in my case, content creation. This one is a difficult one. Due to the nature of my own condition, I can see this being in my future. The influencer breakdown. I already kind of did this like 2 years ago on a stream, if you want to view it as my second ever stream. And honestly, I don't have a concrete answer for this one. Perhaps it's because we want to see the human side of a creator, an influencer, that we subconsciously don't view as being, well, a human. We search for humanity in a lot of things, as evidenced by personification. It would make sense then for us to do this with people like streamers. The parasocial relationship we have with them is by definition not a one-to-one social one. They are words and faces on a screen. Entertainment. So to see that facade crack in them and our subconscious become real, that we can see the humanity in them. We can personify someone who is already a person, which is certainly a strange concept. When seeing someone like 𝐁𝐫𝐤𝐬, who is essentially all a fluffy facade, this desire is only exacerbated as compared to a channel like my own, where I at least feel I am very open in my own human experiences. This is why I believe that the game chooses Ame-chan to portray herself as an angel, something otherworldly and decidedly not human. It's the ultimate version of the concept that I'm discussing with you now. Of course, not everyone enjoys this, and while the stream views certainly go up during a breakdown stream in the game, NSO does a great job in showing many people are indeed concerned for her well-being. Ame-chan is human. She has wants and desires, fears and insecurities, just like the rest of us. Many of her texts and private Twitter posts make her seem apathetic, but in reality, she does seem to truly care about her viewers. After you hit 100,000 subscribers, man, I would love to hit that number, she makes a tweet on her private which reads, "If my smile can grant soul salvation, then I will keep smiling for all the viewers on the other side of the stream." While this does show a slightly overinflated ego, it shows how she actually views her audience. She truly wants to make them happy. This makes her breakdown in virtually every ending all the more heartbreaking. In her pursuit of perfection, she ultimately crumbles. I've been thinking about how this internet angel persona was born from the perfection I've always been subconsciously aspiring for. Like she's the embodiment of my ideal self. I think I've always wished that I could be someone's angel. This is a direct line from Ame-chan, one that serves to show us what she truly desires. This dichotomy between the ideal self and the real bodily self is endlessly fascinating and sad at the same time. She just can't be satisfied with being who she is, as she has been told over and over again, especially as a woman, that she isn't good enough, that she needs to be an other to appeal to the male gaze. It's the presence of a second self, one that criticizes and controls the true self. In just writing this, I think I understand what Ame-chan is now. Not a supportive, significant other, but rather an embodiment of the gaze of another. Whether that be the white gaze, not in this case, obviously, the male gaze, or even, I'm about to coin a term here, the internet gaze. Alright, yeah, let's roll with this train of thought. If the gaze is the presence of a second self that critiques the true self, and is the byproduct of repression and oppression, and serves to self-oppress the victim, can we apply this to the internet? Well, kinda. Nobody is outwardly being oppressed in this situation, however the subconscious effects can be devastating. It's rather obvious how the internet, social media like Instagram or YouTube, present us with an ideal life of another, like an influencer, for example, that makes us feel bad about the mundanity of our own lives. Of course, the cruelest part is that social media is a best moments montage, meaning that nobody is actually living this ideal life or being this ideal self. Instead, it's a fabricated illusion to, again, get you to buy more stuff. In this way, big tech controls a part of you, based purely on fantasy. Ame-chan wants to become her ideal self, an angel that saves others like she's seen done by other influencers. Except like her own 𝐁𝐫𝐤𝐬 persona, those other influencers don't actually exist in that form. Instead, everyone was a fabricated self within the Wired. And this fabricated self, in turn, exists to criticize the real self, the true self, putting it down and making it want to change. It controls the real self, just as Ame-chan does with Ame-chan. This, friends, is the internet gaze. Are you happy? What does it even mean to be happy? The numbers feel nice. Views, subscribers, money. I love all of those things. But is it really making me happy? I want to end this video off with that question. What is happiness in a world where we're all connected? Does it mean boarding the Galactic Express and flying off to a place where we can truly be our own person? Is it finding comfort in the little things, even if we are living in hell? to learn to be okay with that, accepting it for what it is, and trying to find our own happiness within it? I don't know the answers to these questions. I don't think Ame-chan or even 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚𝐤𝐬 for that matter does either. I think the entire point of life is to try to find that answer. And I think that answer is different for everybody. Whether it be the product of an amalgamation of external influences from others, or something manufactured by big tech. I don't know, I think that pursuit is still valid. Even if we have no free will, we still have that question. What is happiness? And for that journey and that pursuit, I am eternally grateful. I am not happy as I am now, but that can change. It always has the possibility of a new tomorrow, one that is amongst the stars. I surely hope I've been able to properly break down this game. This was a harder one to write, as I'm not incredibly well versed in a lot of the topics I discussed. And I also feel a lot of the game is rather obvious, so I don't have to precisely go over a lot of it. If you enjoyed the video, please comment down your thoughts, as well as hitting the like button. It really does help out a ton. I'm thinking of covering 𝐁𝐫𝐞𝐚𝐤𝐬 next. Now, a word from our sponsor, Squid Boy, my horror short film. Now on a new film-specific channel. Here is the trailer. And, as always, thank you for watching.